Tired of lifeless garden soil and expensive store-bought fertilizers, especially during these cold November months? Imagine creating your own nutrient-rich soil supercharger right at home, even in the dead of winter, without any of the typical worm farm smell. This surprisingly easy method for winter worm farming will revolutionize your garden and your wallet. Winter can feel like an eternity for passionate gardeners. While your outdoor beds lie dormant under frost and the growing season seems impossibly far away, that restless energy to nurture and grow doesn't just disappear. Many of us find ourselves staring out windows at barren landscapes, thumbing through seed catalogs and counting down the days until spring. But what if I told you that winter doesn't have to be a time of gardening hibernation? What if you could spend these cold months actively creating the most valuable resource your garden will ever know, all from the comfort of your warm home? Winter worm farming is your secret weapon against the gardening doldrums, and it's far simpler than you might imagine. While your neighbors are paying premium prices for bagged compost and synthetic fertilizers come spring, you'll be sitting on a treasure trove of black gold that money literally cannot buy. The worm castings you produce during these quiet winter months will transform your soil biology, boost nutrient availability, and give your plants a level of vitality that store-bought amendments simply cannot match. Think of it as getting paid to compost your kitchen scraps while simultaneously preparing your garden for its best season yet. Let's tackle the elephant in the room right away because I know what you're thinking. You've heard horror stories about smelly worm bins, escaped worms crawling across kitchen floors, and general grossness that makes indoor composting sound like a nightmare. Here's the truth that will change everything. A properly maintained worm bin has absolutely no offensive odor whatsoever. In fact, a healthy worm farm smells like rich, earthy forest floor after a gentle rain. That pleasant organic scent is the smell of life happening, not decay. The key to odor-free worm farming lies entirely in balance and understanding what makes your worms thrive. When worm bins smell bad, it's almost always because of overfeeding, too much moisture, or adding inappropriate materials. Worms are incredibly efficient decomposers, but they're not miracle workers. Feed them correctly, maintain proper moisture levels similar to a wrung-out sponge, and provide adequate air circulation, and you'll never experience unpleasant smells. The system is actually beautifully self-regulating when you understand the basics. Setting up your winter worm farm requires surprisingly little investment or space. You can start with something as simple as 2 stackable plastic storage bins or invest in a purpose-built worm composting system, but either way, you're looking at a minimal footprint that fits easily under a kitchen sink, in a closet, or even in a heated garage. The essential components include your container with drainage and ventilation holes, bedding material like shredded newspaper or cardboard mixed with some garden soil, and, of course, your worms. Red wigglers are the champions of indoor composting, far superior to regular earthworms because they thrive in the confined, food-rich environment of a worm bin and reproduce rapidly. When setting up your initial bedding, think of creating a cozy hotel for your new workforce. Moisten your shredded paper or cardboard until it feels like that wrung-out sponge we mentioned, then fluff it up to create air pockets. Mix in a handful of garden soil or finished compost to introduce beneficial microbes and provide grit that helps worms digest their food. Start with about a pound of red wigglers for every square foot of surface area in your bin, and resist the urge to add food immediately. Let your worms acclimate for a few days, settling into their new home, and beginning to consume the bedding material itself, which they absolutely love. Feeding worms during winter is where the magic really happens because you're essentially transforming your kitchen waste stream into garden gold. Your worms will eagerly consume fruit and vegetable scraps, coffee grounds and filters, crushed eggshells, tea bags, and even small amounts of bread or pasta. The trick is understanding portion control and the specific needs of winter worm farming. During colder months, even indoor worm bins may experience slightly cooler temperatures depending on where they're located, which can slow down worm activity somewhat compared to warmer seasons. Start conservatively with feeding, perhaps burying a cup or two of chopped kitchen scraps under the bedding once a week, then observe how quickly your worms process it. You'll know you're feeding at the right pace when the previous feeding has largely disappeared before you add more. Chopping or blending your scraps makes them easier for worms to consume and speeds up the entire process dramatically. Avoid meat, dairy, oils, and overly acidic foods like citrus in large quantities, as these can create problems in the confined ecosystem of your bin. Onions and garlic in moderation are fine, though some worm farmers prefer to leave them out entirely. Moisture management becomes particularly important during winter because indoor heating can dry out your bin more quickly than you might expect. Check your bedding weekly, and if it's starting to feel dry, mist it lightly with water from a spray bottle. Conversely, if you notice excess liquid pooling at the bottom of your bin, you've got too much moisture and should add more dry bedding material immediately. This liquid, often called worm tea, can be drained off and diluted for use as a plant fertilizer, but too much moisture in the bin itself creates anaerobic conditions that lead to smell and can harm your worms. After about 3 to 4 months of feeding and caring for your worm farm, you'll notice something remarkable happening in your bin. The bedding and food scraps are transforming into dark, crumbly, incredibly rich material that looks nothing like what you started with. These are worm castings, and they represent one of the most powerful natural fertilizers and soil amendments available to gardeners. Unlike synthetic fertilizers that provide a quick shot of nutrients but do nothing for soil structure or biology, worm castings work on every level simultaneously, improving drainage, water retention, nutrient availability, and microbial diversity. Harvesting your castings can be as simple or sophisticated as you prefer. The easiest method involves moving all the contents of your bin to one side, adding fresh bedding and food to the empty side, and waiting a few weeks as worms migrate toward the new food source. Then you simply scoop out the finished castings from the original side, leaving most worms behind. Alternatively, you can dump everything onto a large plastic sheet under bright light and form it into cone-shaped piles. Worms hate light and will burrow toward the center of each pile, allowing you to scrape away the outer layers of pure castings every few minutes until you're left with just a ball of worms to return to fresh bedding. The potency of worm castings as a soil supercharger cannot be overstated. These castings contain beneficial bacteria, enzymes, and nutrients in forms that plants can immediately access and utilize. They also contain humic acids that improve soil structure and increase cation exchange capacity, which is a fancy way of saying they help soil hold onto nutrients instead of letting them wash away. A single handful of quality worm castings contains more beneficial microorganisms than several cubic feet of regular soil, making them an incredibly concentrated source of biological activity. During winter, you can use your harvested castings immediately for houseplants by top dressing them around the base of each plant, or mixing them into potting soil at a ratio of 1 part castings to 4 parts regular potting mix. As you start seeds indoors for spring planting, incorporating worm castings into your seed starting mix gives seedlings an incredible boost of nutrients and beneficial microbes right from germination. You can also brew worm casting tea by steeping castings in water with a bubbler for 24 hours, creating a liquid fertilizer that's perfect for watering indoor plants throughout the winter months. What starts as a winter project to stay connected with gardening inevitably becomes a year-round practice once you experience the results. Your worm farm will continue producing incredible castings month after month, season after season, reducing your household waste while simultaneously building your garden's fertility. Come spring, when you mix those winter-produced castings into your outdoor beds or use them for transplanting, you'll see the difference immediately in plant vigor, disease resistance, and, overall, productivity. The beauty of worm farming extends beyond just the physical benefits to your garden. There's something deeply satisfying about participating in this closed-loop system where waste becomes resource, where tiny creatures work tirelessly to transform garbage into gold, and where you're actively building soil health rather than depleting it. You become intimately connected with the fundamental cycles of decomposition and renewal that drive all healthy ecosystems. I encourage you to embrace worm farming not as a temporary winter experiment, but as a permanent addition to your gardening practice. Share your progress, your challenges, and your victories in the comments below because the Living Soil Lab community thrives on exactly this kind of practical hands-on learning. Ask questions, show us pictures of your setup, tell us about your first harvest of black gold, and learn from fellow worm farmers who are on this same journey. If this guide has inspired you to start your own winter worm farm and unlock the power of soil supercharging, make sure you subscribe to the Living Soil Lab so you never miss our upcoming videos on advanced worm farming techniques, creative ways to use castings in your garden, and all the other secrets to building truly living soil. hit that share button and spread the word to fellow gardeners who are ready to transform their winter months from dormant waiting into productive soil building. Together, we're cultivating not just gardens but a deeper understanding of the living systems that make all growth possible.